Hello, welcome everybody. It will be a presentation on history of wine, mainly in Anatolia and on Thrace. However, to draw the origins further back, we'll have to we'll have to go beyond Turkey, and we'll start from the origins, more remote origins of wine, and then we'll come on to the Republic, so it will be a very quick flight on the history of wine, because normally this is a very old subject. We are talking about at least 4,000 or 5,000 years old of history of wine. And when we talk about grape, especially when we refer to grape seeds, it goes even further back till, as you will see, till about 10,000 years ago. So for that reason, we'll just be focused in that period, starting from Hittites, slightly prior to Hittites, and then, as I said, to Republic. Then, it will last like about 40-45 minutes, if I can, of course, because it's such a long topic. And afterwards, for the remaining part, for like 20-25 minutes, I will try to introduce some of Turkish grapes, many of Turkish native grapes. And we'll also have a tasting, and the wines we have chosen for the tasting session will be the grapes which are very little known to everybody, even I think to Turkish people, because there are some native grapes which are coming back in Turkey, so they were lost for a while, unfortunately, while Turkey went into the fashion of international grape varieties such as Cabernet Sauvignons, Merlots, Syrahs. Still, the big fashion is continuing on. However, fortunately, thanks to some individual efforts by little local producers, some of them are coming back. So they will be those grape varieties that we'll taste at the end. Well, I wanted to start with In Vino Veritas, the truth is wine. The one who said this is Gaius Plinius Secundus, who is the Pliny the Elder, who lived in the 1st century from the year 23 to 79. He was born in Como, and he died when Vesuvio volcano erupted in Pompeii when he was at the age of 56 years old. Well, besides In Vino Veritas, and besides this famous sentence which says the truth is in wine, he is also known as a gentleman who wrote one of the most impressive books of the history about the history of nature, and his book is called Historiae Naturalis, composed of 37 books actually, and 14th book is entirely on wine. The milestones of the history of wine, as you can see, 5400 BC, oldest wine in Hacı Firuz Tepe, Zavros Mountains, northwestern Iran. We'll talk about this. 4100 BC, oldest winery in Areni, Armenia. Of course, these are this information that you see is in the light of the archaeological findings. Otherwise, the oldest wine is quite a issue which is conflictual issue even at least between Iran and Georgia, because Georgians claim that they were the first producers. Anyway, so for the time being, historically and archaeologically speaking, these are the facts. Around 1500 BC, the first wine appellation, one would say appellation denomination system, classification system, was developed by Hittites, an Anatolian civilization. Around 450s BC, by Herodotus, who's known also as the father of history, writer of the first book on history in the world, Historia is a famous book. He was mentioning for the first time a grape variety in history. Then around 250s AD, Celts, or Gauls as they are called in French, were the first to use wooden barrel to transport wine, though. I mean, this is not wooden barrel type of barrique type, because as you know, wooden barrel nowadays is used mainly for aging wine and for adding some qualities to wine. It was just wooden barrel used for transportation. And 17th century, exactly 685, first cork was used for the wine bottle. And in 1720s, the first wine bottle was produced. When we say wine bottle, I refer to the normal size of bottle that we are using today, 750 milliliter bottle, just containing bottle. 1850, fermentation discovered and formulated by French chemist Gay-Lussac for the first time. 1863, yeast and their role in fermentation, because Gay-Lussac discovered alcohol. Actually, they chemically discovered alcohol was known far before in 8th century. Arabs were the first to make alcohol, and also the word alcohol even is an Arabic word. So it comes from Arabic, alcohol, like alembic, for instance, which is used for distillation, because Arabs were the first people to, I would say, ironic as the fact that all this wine comes from Iran. But the word alcohol is an Arabic word. However, chemical proof was done by Gay-Lussac. 1860s, Louis Pasteur discovered that this alcohol was produced by yeasts that were eating sugar in the fruit, especially in the grain. Okay, so let's continue with this map. On this map, you can see the site that we call. I'll try. Yes, exactly. Hacı Firuz Tepe, Turkish name. Hacı Firuz Hill, Turkish name, because it's northwestern part of Iran. So for those who are on this side, just 2 points. Well, anyway, I pointed with a yellow sign. Oldest wine discovered by archaeologists from University of Pennsylvania. They excavated the site in 1960s, late 1960s. The purpose was to excavate a Neolithic site. So they did not intend to find wine at the beginning. However, in the course of the time, they discovered at the bottom of the house, in a place like a cellar, 6 jars, more or less 9 or 10 liters of capacity came out. And there was a kind of yellow residue on the jars. They could not guess what it was. Well, they thought it could be wine or something else, but of course there was no scientific proof. And they took the jars to the United States. In those days, technology in the United States even did not allow them to explore what was scientific. In early 1990s, however, they made some further analysis because the laboratory of the university was renewed. So some new, very detailed and very sophisticated instruments were purchased to the university. And with those instruments, they made some further analysis and finally discovered tartaric acid, which meant that it was wine. Because tartaric acid is something which is only produced by grape wine. It exists in the grape as well. However, in the process of fermentation, its amount, its percentage rises. So this was the proof for them that it was the oldest wine, and it was dating back to 5400 BC, as we said, because it was the age of the Neolithic site. However, this map is important for another thing, I think. Well, look at the high concentration of the grape clusters, especially in southeastern part of Turkey, and in the area that we call Kenan. Well, especially today's Israel, Lebanon, Syria, but also around Turkey, just Euphrates and Tigris River. Euphrates and Tigris River have always been very, very important in producing and in the trade of wine, as we'll see further. And also, again here, you can see some black, well, these are the amphorae, of course, or let's say, well, these are the clay pot jars. We cannot, well, they did not have the 2 handles, so it's hard to call them amphorae, because something, you can call something a container, amphorae, only if there are 2 handles. Amphi, phoros, Greek word, just carrying on both sides, or holding on both sides, the meaning. However, these are the, as I said, clay pot jars, which were discovered as well. Look, well, there's one in Hacı Firuz Tepe, the other one in Godin Tepe, which is very important for beer as well, and some more in this area, southern Mesopotamia. So this is a map which shows us, as you can see at the bottom of the map, this is very important archaeobotanical evidence for grape pre-3000 BC. So the grape clusters, so pre-3000 BC, before 3000 BC, and also here molecular archaeological evidence for wine pre-3000 BC. Okay, so I will use this. Oldest grape in Anatolia, Nevali Chori, a site, and Çayönü. These are the 2 important sites excavated during the famous GAP project. GAP project was a project which was concerning the construction of more than 10 dams and hydroelectric plants So these two sites appeared then. However, unfortunately, of course, these two sites, well, these two archaeological sites remained under the water during the construction process of these dams. So Nevada and Göbektepe. So this is about Turkey. Well, just some evidences to show you who told at least, well, when we come to Turkey. As you can see, this wild grape, Vitis sylvestris, about 3 millimeters long. Of course, this is the grape seed, the length of the grape seed. We're in Turkey, near Turkey city of Urfa, 490 meters above the sea level on the slope of Euphrates side valley, Hilvan province, 8,400 BP, which means before present, so 6,000 before Christ. This is one of the oldest grape seeds discovered in the world. I'm saying one of the oldest, probably second or third oldest, because the oldest we'll see a bit further. And then domesticated grape as well, Kurbanhöyük, another site, which is again in Urfa. As you can see, 5,700 BC at this time, so as old as Iranian one. If you find grape though, it doesn't mean that they make wine. Because if the temperature in that environment does not reach 20 degrees Celsius, the yeast will not become active, so the grape will remain as grape forever. Because for the natural yeast which exists on the skin of the grapes and also in the air, to be active, the minimum temperature required is like 20 degrees. So for that reason, archaeologically speaking, the grape is just the proof of the existence of viticulture. Otherwise, it's not it doesn't refer to wine. So for that reason, we are saying historical evidence for grape for this. This is the old jar. Here is a picture I took from the book about this reddish residue. Well, this is what they discovered in Godintepe, and the one on the right hand side is the one they discovered in Neolithic place, Hacı Firustepe. So the oldest wine is the jar which is on the right hand side. Here is a map. This map is a picture I took from a wine magazine I'm subscribed to. It's very important as a map because it shows us, it displays 3 sites. First, Şulaveri, up here. Oldest grape ever found. Oldest grape ever found, Georgia. Şulaveri, Georgia. 8,000, almost 9,000 BP. So just like close to 7,000 before Christ. Oldest winery, Areni Cave. It's a relatively recent discovery. In 2010, summer 2010, that the oldest winery was discovered. And Hacı Firustepe, oldest wine. So oldest grape seed, oldest winery, and oldest wine all together on the line. So this is something, this map shows us the cradle of wine, where wine comes out. Much before Europe, much before Asia, much before, of course, almost thousands of years before, new continents such as the American continent. So this is, for this reason, this map is very important. Oldest winery picture I found on internet again here. Well, this is this is just it doesn't have anything to do with the wine though. It's just Ararat Mount, which is highest mountain of Turkey, as you know, more than 5,000 meters above the sea level. But I put this. Well, it's a picture that I took like in May, 6-7 years ago, when I went to Eastern Turkey as a guide, because I'm also a professional tourist guide. On the other hand, I used to go to East, but I put this photo just to remind you one thing. Here we see the intersection of legend and of science. Because according to legend, as you know, the first vintner and the first wine grower and winemaker is Noah. I mean, during the flood, before the flood, he was informed by God about the flood. He made a big ark, and then as you know, he sailed for a while, and at the end, it seems that he just reached the Ararat Mount. And then at the top of Ararat Mount, he planted wine. He collected grapes. He drank wine, and he became drunk. The Bible says that it happened somewhere near Ararat Mount or Ararat Mount. Look at the site where the oldest wine was discovered. It's only 100 miles. In such a big world, truly, I mean, the oldest wine comes from the area, which is only 100 miles. So for that reason, I find this very meaningful. Actually, this coincidence of history, religion, and on the other hand, the science. For that reason, I wanted to use this photo. When we come to Turkey, although we cannot talk about a scientific evidence, such as the tartaric acid discovery or tartaric acid exploration, we have these items, these vessels, golden vessels, which are exhibited in the Museum of Anatolian Civilizations in Ankara, which is one of the most beautiful museums of Turkey, and not only of Turkey, which is one of the most beautiful, although it's not named so, one of the most beautiful wine museums of the world, or wine history museums of the world, because more than 50% of items in that museum are directly related, are directly connected with wine. So these are the oldest wine vessels of Turkey, which date back to 2500s BC, nearly, more or less, because we call this Old Bronze Age. However, what's important is that they are made of gold, because they belong to Bronze Age, and they were discovered in the royal tombs of Alacahöyük, which is a site near Çorum province of Turkey. Lots of things, and many of the things which were discovered in those tombs were made of bronze. Just, few items were made of gold. Among them, there were wine vessels. So it shows us that wine was valuable, because wine was divine. Why? Two reasons. I mean, the divinity. So, for instance, we never see a God attributed to any other drink, including water. However, wine was always holy, whatever the civilization was. Reason for this, as I said, there are two. The first thing is that old man who did not have any chemical knowledge did not know how this transformation from a grape sugar into alcohol happened. Just divine. They did not do anything without any intervention by man. This is the only drink which can take place or which can be produced. The first thing. Second is that when they were sick or when they were wounded, antiseptic. Even in the time when water was dirty, because today we can have water, healthy water, because it's treated, right, by the municipalities, by local administrations, or wherever. However, in those days, people were drinking water, they were getting sick, or they were dying. However, wine, they were healed with wine. So for that reason, wine was always considered as a holy item. So, probably reason why all this, these vessels were like this, made of gold, because from there we understand that the highest value was attributed to these. So this must be due to this fact. Again, from the same museum, from the very near window case. So Bronze Age, 2500 BC. Hittites, a wine empire. This is how I call them. I mean, Hittites were probably, no one calls a wine empire, but from my point of view, or from other wine history researchers' point of view, Hittites had two alphabets, or had two just kind of pictograms. One was what we call the writing they were doing with cuneiform nails. The other one was like Egyptians, hieroglyph. So this is Hittite hieroglyph, and in Hittite hieroglyph, this sign that you see referred to vine and wine. So they use the same one. So grape, vine, and the tree, the plant itself, the V, was symbolized with this, and it's very much like indeed. You can see the trunk. You can see on both sides three. Probably they were grapes, which were just symbolized with this, and also wine was symbolized with this. Here is a Hittite map, just to locate you, by the way, for those who don't know about the location of Hittites. Basically, Central Anatolia. The first capital was Hattusha, and their first and last capital, so for 400 years, they ruled around Hattusha, which is today's Çorum, like 60 kilometers from the city center of Çorum. However, what made Hittite country prosperous, wealthy, was this river, which is today the longest river of Turkey, called Kızılırmak, or Red River. So Red River was very important. Rivers were very important for wine civilization. We'll see later on why. Geçtin was the word Hittites used for wine. We don't know how they pronounced it. However, when they made a transcription of this, well, philologists used, transcribed it like yeşil. Here, red wine. I will not read just all the Hittite descriptions because we don't know how they were read, as I said. New wine, honeyed wine, sour wine, probably vinegar, because a grape juice turns into wine if you are lucky. Otherwise, it may turn into vinegar as well. That's one of the yeasts which exist also on the skins of the grape. Dried grape, or wine from dried grape. A beer wine, this is quite interesting. We see in the civilizations which follow Hittites as well. For instance, in regions we see as well. Wine supply, wine steward. So Hittites had people who are employed like this. A Galgesh, court official responsible for wine monopoly. So from there we understand that Hittites had a wine monopoly and the prices were regulated by Hittite kings. So reason why lots of other things, because there's much to say about Hittites. Even just to speak about Hittites would last like 5 or 6 hours without getting into details about the wine culture of Hittites. But I will sum up like this. But the reason why I call Hittites as wine empire, because they made the first classification. For the first time, we see categories of wine, together with Egypt though, at the same time, because we should not underestimate the role and the contribution of Egyptians into wine. However, it's true that Hittites were among the first to do this. Some Hittite objects, look for instance, a bull, holy animal of the time, which was used for pouring wine for just here. Wine was a divine drink. Reason we said before, because they did not know how it was taking place. Because, for instance, beer, there was beer as well. Beer is almost as old as wine. However, for beer, there's need to a little intervention by man. At least, well, you have to do something with the barley. You have to take it and you have to put it into water. And then, because to obtain starch, then afterwards you have to roast it. So there's a process you should do. For grape, just nothing. You don't have to squeeze even the grape juice. It's enough to put all the grapes one on the other in a kind of vat, and then the fermentation will take place on its own. So for that reason, wine was holy. So wine belonged to divine class, high class of people. Beer was local daily drink for Hittites. So it's quite interesting. This is, I think, this picture I took in the Museum of Konya, Archaeological Museum of Konya. This is one of the oldest wine vessels of Anatolia, 1750s before Christ. Although it's been interpreted by the archaeologists who discovered this as a sort of lamp which was hung on the wall, it may be used also, it may have been used also as a wine vessel to put wine. Again, a finding from Hittite times, 14th century before Christ, Malatya Aslantepe, which was one of the eastern borders of Hittites on Euphrates, on the side of Euphrates, and we can see Hittite queen or king Hittite man who is pouring wine for the king who is on the left-hand side. This is also exhibited in the Museum of Anatolian Civilizations in Ankara. That museum offers us a lot. Here is quite an interesting symbol. I would like to say 2 words about this. 8th century before Christ. So just compared to Hittites, we can say late Hittite, because although Hittite kingdom disappeared mysteriously, no one still knows today how it happened. Well, they are talking about a drought, famine, or an earthquake, but historians are not clear about that issue. However, after Hittites disappeared, just lots of little Hittite emirates, principalities, which were discovered, were continued to rule in Anatolia, and this comes from Ivriz. Ivriz is today located in southern Cappadocia, Niğde province. Yes, Niğde province, Niğde Ivriz. So here, this is quite important. This late Hittite relief on the rock relief of Ivriz is important because for the first time we see a king. This is King Tarhundas, the name of the king. He's holding wheat ear, just wheat in the left hand, and grape on the right hand. Bread and wine. Because generally, bread and wine are thought to exist with Christianity, or to be holy with Christianity. However, when we look at Hittite documents, we see that there were 2 things. When kings were dead, Then, of course, they were buried in the tombs. And then there were two things which were referred to them: wine and bread. Just bread was spread on the tombs of the kings, graves of the kings, and wine was poured. Again, just so for instance, bread and wine were always, and they were both holy even before Christianity. Because here we are talking about 3,000 years ago, much prior to Christianity. So this is quite important. Some more wine vessels. Look, even they use some filters. Just because since ancient wines were not good, we are sure about that. Or quite few of those ancient wines were good, which is quite normal because wine has improved in technology. Improves in technology. We always say as wine instructors, by 2015 you are drinking theoretically the best wine of the history. In 2020 you will be drinking the best wine of the history because really with technology, of course, if the technology is not abused too much, the wine becomes better. So probably just they were using this kind of filter for filtering wine, for having a higher quality, better quality of wine. So we're in central Anatolia, we're in eastern Turkey, we're in just, however, now we are passing to Troy. Troy, which is right there, western edge of Anatolian Peninsula. Troy was raided by Achaeans, by Greeks, around 13th century before Christ. I'm talking about the famous Trojan War, which is also described by Homer 500 years after the war, though, 8th century before Christ. Homer describes it as in the form of a love story between Paris and Helen. Anyway, that's something we should be apart. However, it's true that Troy was damaged, was destroyed during the war. And Trojans escaped from Troy. And even as you know, or at least I will tell you, well, Trojans, some of these, Aeneas among those Trojans, is considered as founder of Rome. So Etruscans probably, or possibly, were also escaping from Troy, and they reached Italy Peninsula. And lots of grapes were carried as well by Trojans. This is the Trojan horse. Black of Troy, Italian grape variety. We have, just think of Italy. Italy has the shape of a boot, as you know. There's the heel of the boot, and at the heel of the boot, that's a region we call Puglia. They have lots of grape varieties. They have three big red grape varieties. The main grape variety of them is this one, Nero di Troia, Black of Troy. The second is Negro Amaro. The third is Primitivo, which is Zinfandel, which is the cousin of Zinfandel, just for Primitivo, and because Primitivo was taken to United States by Italian migrants, like late 19th century, and afterwards it took the name of Zinfandel. Of course, it changed its genes for a while, to some point at least. Marzemino, according to some researchers, some historians, Marzemino is another grape variety which we call Merzifon karası in Turkish, which was carried to Italy, but this time not to the heel of the boot, this time further up into the lagoon of Venice. Just they went until the mountains almost, Trentino area, Alto Adige area specifically, Rovereto town specifically, Trento and Rovereto town specifically. So Marzemino, which became the favorite wines of Italian court like in 19th century. So Merzifon karası, probably, even they say that the name Marzemino comes from Merzifon, ancient name of Merzifon, because one day he said, well, this grape is coming from there. So this is grape migration. So just all labels, Nero and the Troia. Some just grapes depicted on here on the coins. Here is a river, the other two rivers, Euphrates and Tigris. Very briefly, I will tell you about a trade. This trade is described in detail by Herodotus in Historia and by Xenophon in Anabasis, Return of 10,000s. I mean, Xenophon was a Greek soldier who wrote a book telling about the return of Greek soldiers from a campaign to Persia. And anyway, just Herodotus tells us briefly that wines were produced in this area, and they were afterwards there was need to carry them because wine was one of the oldest trade items of the history. So they need to sell wine. So what they were doing, just downstream, they needed to do something, but they did not have boats. So they were making some boats. They were cutting the trees vertically. There were big trees in those days. In Eastern Anatolia now there's nothing, but there were big trees in those days. They were just cutting them vertically. They were making some half cylinders, just putting those half cylinders side by side, tying them by big ropes, then fixing 4 poles at each corner. Then afterwards by sort of animal skin, they were just covering. So they were making a kind of rectangular square platform. And afterwards one person, captain, was getting down. They were putting 2 donkeys there, and also as much wine, as much jars as they could, full of wine. And the captain was going all the way down. Oh, I'm sorry, I wanted to point. No. Yes. Right here, until Mari, M-A-R-I, Tel Hariri today, which was a big city, a very wealthy city. And the captain was selling all the wine there, and afterwards he had to go back. But of course, up the street, he could not go. So he was untying the ropes. He was there for just, well, the wooden blocks were there. He was selling the wood. The ropes were important for them though. He was putting them on one of the donkeys. And he was doing the same thing for the leather, which was valuable on the same donkey. He himself was getting on the other donkey, because don't worry, there were 2 donkeys on the raft. And then just he was going back the same way, by the road. So this trade, Herodotus says, lasted for almost 1300 years. Longest lasting and oldest wine trade recorded in the history which took place through Euphrates and Tigris rivers in eastern Turkey. Urartu kingdom was a big wine kingdom as well. Here is Urartians. Well, this is Tigris, by the way. Well, this is here we can see huge bowls in which they were mixing wine. Mixing wine with water was a very common practice. And all this was taking place because, as I said, wines were too thick. Because these people did not know how to filter wines, how to stabilize wines. Well, because to do this, you need knowledge, you need instruments, etc. So for that reason, here, for instance, this is just a picture, the wall taken from actually just while they drew. This was a Urartian belt. This was an Urartian belt, so they made the pictures of this. So just ceremonial wine, or wine during a marriage ceremony. Tigris, Hasan Keyf, well, for those who know, a picture I took, again, a couple of years ago in Hasan Keyf. Euphrates River again. Phrygian kingdom, great kingdom for, let me check the time, not to be too late. Oh, I'm behind the time. Okay, well, it's such a long one, so just to make the whole history short. This is a great wine empire too, wine kingdom too, Phrygians. All the Phrygians ruled like 1200s to 700s, mainly one of their kings who died in 713 BC probably, Midas is the best known. Tomb of Midas is this one, and Phrygians have their capital, for those who don't know, here, Gordian, west of Ankara, again Sangarios River with its old name, right? So again, American archaeologists in 1960s, late 1960s, discovered this tomb. This is a tumulus, just like pyramids in Egypt. Well, first pyramids were done by stones, while this one was by piling earth. So this one, and then, well, they discovered all these items, and they discovered the skeleton of an old man. This is, of course, here we see the whole thing exhibited in the Museum of Anatolian Civilizations in Ankara. We can see him skeleton, and then the body of a man who was probably around 60s. Importance of this for the wine civilization, a detailed analysis which was done into these bowls revealed 2 things: tartaric acid at the bottom, and on the at the edges, on the sides, calcium oxalate, beer stone, wine and beer wine. So just probably we think that ancient civilizations, specifically Hittites and Phrygians, were mixing these two. And this is quite interesting because this is quite a new label which was produced in 2000. They wanted to repeat, they wanted to reproduce that wine of the past. They're more or less following the original recipe, because, well, they discovered calcium oxalate, so there was beer, they understood that, archaeologists. There was calcium oxalate, so beer, tartaric acid wine, and gluconic acid honey. So just and also some spice apparently. So they mixed it and they reproduced in September 2000, if I'm not wrong. They reproduced this wine and they offered this wine to participants of a kind of banquet in the evening, which took place in the University of Pennsylvania. Well, here are some Phrygian wine vessels that we are seeing. Phrygian wine vessel. The most important among the Phrygian wine vessels is this one. This is a photo from the picture of the one which is exhibited in the Museum of Anatomy Civilizations. Look at the handle. Look at the handle here. And afterwards, oldest shipwreck of the world, which dates back to 13th century BC, is also in Turkey. It was discovered by American archaeologist George Bass, at least, well, it was a team, and the leader was George Bass in 1982. Uluburun shipwreck, because it was discovered near Kaş, near the area of Kaş, which is close to Antalya for those who know. And here is, well, of course, the ship is not in this state of preservation. This is a one-to-one copy of the ship, which was reconstructed by a foundation like 7-8 years ago, I think. So I took this picture in Bodrum. It's just next to the entrance of the museum they put, and well, for a while it was sailing. We saw it in Istanbul, in Çeşme anyway. So it was a very small ship. Its importance for the wine culture was that its cargo was consisting of wine, olive oil, and wheat, and it sank near Kaş. Here you can see the route of the ship. Right, just the ships were not going on the beach. Just they were always closed. They were sailing always because they were very small. This ship is like 15 meters long, even less than that. So for that reason, well, they could not go on so just well, these are the words for getting all the amphora, and this is the amphora which was discovered in Uluburun shipwreck, oldest shipwreck of the world recorded until today. Some amphorae, I will not say anything very special, but amphora was very important for carrying wine until it was completely replaced by wooden barrel in 14th century. Well, gradually from 3rd century AD, but from 14th century totally. Another people who played a very important role in teaching, introducing grape culture, viticulture to Europe were Phocaeans. Foça. Exactly. Phocaeans were living peacefully in their area, and they were sea people. 546, Anatolia was raided and occupied by a very strong army. Persians. Xerxes was raiding, and he was devastating everything. And Phocaeans, seeing that they were not able to resist to this army, so they took the decision of leaving their homeland, and they just sailed for a long time. First they reached Syracuse, where they introduced grape viticulture for the first time. Then afterwards, following probably the Italian coast, they reached Nice, Nicaea. Nicaea means victory, because they saw barbarians there, they fought with them, so they won the war. So they said, well, this is our victory, so let's call this place Nicaea, which became afterwards Nice, and then they established another colony, Antipolis, Antipolis means the city at the opposite, because it's right the opposite of Nice, which became Antibes today, and then Massalia, which is Marseille today, Phoenician colony. But their big contribution was the introduction of grape culture, viticulture to Europe. So 6th century, France. So to France for the first time, grape was introduced by Phocaeans. The ship was also reconstructed in 2009. Kibele, Cybele, mother goddess of Anatolia. Some statements, these are important, so I would like to read this briefly. Pramneon, some of them at least, produced in the Izmir region is a dried and full-bodied wine with high tannin and alcohol. Gallipoli, it mentions, Central Anatolia it mentions, Galatia region, Central Anatolia sweet wine was produced, and it was called Cybelitis. Plinius Secundus is saying, and then afterwards Malatya in eastern Turkey was produced noteworthy wines. Melitene, a Strabo geographer of 1st century AD, mentions. Plinius again mentions quite surprisingly wines from eastern Black Sea. I'm saying quite surprising because today that area is not suitable at all in terms of the climate, especially the number of hours under sun for the production of wine grape mainly. Grape, yes, but wine grape, well, should be different, because grape and wine grape, physically they are different. Here, for instance, a very clear statement and detailed statement even. Let's read this. Besides the raisin wine of Crete, Cilician wines are appreciated as well in Rome. These wines are produced with the grape variety that we know as Appiana. Appiana means ape in Italian, so just the bee, right? Because bees love them because, well, they were very sweet and they were very flavorful. So for that reason, bees were fond of those grapes. Are sometimes boiled. For the first time, we are hearing about pekmez. For those who know Turkish pekmez, which is a grape must reduction, grape juice reduction. Pekmez is just well, for the first time, the first statement, at least in the ancient text, is done by Plinius. And some people dry grapes by half and get their juice by applying a gentle pressing in order to make raisin wine. Gaius Plinius Secundus in the 14th book, page 241. Herodotus, for the first man in history who pronounced a great name, and he was saying, "Passenger, if you pass through Smyrna, which is today's Izmir, you should absolutely stop and drink rose and honey flavored Moscatos wine." So Muscat. And the first grape variety mentioned in written documents in the history is Moscatos. And it's about an Anatolian, Western Anatolian grape variety, which still is produced. Misket. Bordeaux Misketi, as we say in Turkish. It belongs to a very big family, Muscat Blanc Apetigrade, because it has lots of brothers and sisters in France, in Italy, in Asti, for instance, in Italy, in France, in Alsace. Muscat d'Alsace comes from the same root, just they are the same muscats, or Muscat de Beaune de Venise in France. Anyway, just Greek muscats are different. Greek muscats are Alexandria, which is a great variety as well. Here is Muscat grape. Well, some wine towns of Anatolia, I will go a bit fast. Biggest temple of ancient world dedicated to Dionysus, god of wine. Well, it's a very, very big story as well, how Dionysus became. It's in Teos. Teos is Sığacık, near Izmir, like 40-50 kilometers west of Izmir. These are the ruins, of course. This was the biggest temple. And the biggest number of temples as well, dedicated to god of wine, were constructed in ancient Turkey. This picture was taken in Paphos, southern Cyprus, to the Greek part of Cyprus, Dionysiac, very beautiful Dionysos image. This is a picture I took from the scene of the stage building of the theater in Nisa, N-Y-S-A. It's an unbelievably beautiful archaeological site in the western part of Turkey, on Meander Valley, on the valley of Büyük Menderes River, on the way from Ephesus to Pamukkale for the touristic part, or between Aydın and Denizli. Well, Dionysus, it seems, according to mythology, was taken by fairies, by some muses, to the site. And Dionysus grew up here in ancient Nysa, which is important. Well, another picture I took from the Museum of Archaeology in Istanbul. This is a sarcophagus, by the way. Some wine coins here. Well, for instance, here, this coin is very important because we can see an 8th man who's carrying wine, however looked at. He's carrying like this, and besides amphora, for the first time in the history, we are seeing another container, which was skin. So these were skin bags, because skin bags were even more common because they were easier to, well, they were not broken easily, they were easier to produce, and also just they could be shaped easily to carry on the shoulders. So for that reason, it's a coin from Alexandra Troas, Troy, near Troy, like 30 kilometers south of Troy. Byzantine wines, I will not get into details, but Retina wines are common, Conditum, different wines. Moscatos were fond of Moscatos wines, Romans, Byzantines. Facts about Byzantine wines, called Winburga by travelers. Most of wines were sweet and white. This is a big issue as well, because we never know what the wines, what the color of the wines were. This is something I can definitely tell you, because this is a question I asked personally to the gentleman who discovered the oldest wine of the world, whom I met in Izmir in a meeting, to Patrick McGovern. I asked him, well, what was the color of those ancient wines? He said, no, we don't know, because it's true that the color pigments disappear in relatively short time, short time, 150 years, but this is a very short time for the life of the other things in the wine. So sweet and white, however, these are the reports of some travelers, right? Monasteries were pioneers of winemaking. Especially red wines were done by monasteries, because red wines were blood of Jesus Christ, right? This is because, so religious wine. Ritual wines and daily wines, especially in Christian world, were two different things. Daily wines for pleasure, white. Ritual wines for ritual wines for Eucharistic, in other words, were rather probably red. Islands which were sending wine to Anatolia and sites, just Lesbos, Limnos, Tassos, Izauria, Konya, Karaman rather than Konya, southeastern part of Konya today. Misya is Balıkesir, but the coast of Balıkesir. Nearby regions in Byzantine times, Kizikos, Erdek today, Amsakos, Lapseki today, Nikaia, Iznik today, Nicomedia, Izmit of today as town. I'm not talking about Izmir, that's Kocaeli province, and Izmit town. Prusa, Bursa. Well, transformation of water into wine, because, well, this is from a church you may know, most of you, one of the most beautiful churches of Byzantine world and all over the world, Kariye, Saint Saviour in Korea, Istanbul, in Edirne Kapı. This is a picture I took from Eastern Turkey, Akdamar Island in Van, 10th century, great depictions from the Church of Holy Cross, which is an Armenian church on Akdamar Island, Van Lake, close to Ararat Mount. Byzantine grape varieties, Malvasia, Muscat, Papaskarası will taste today one Byzantine grape, one Byzantine wine. Adakarası, well, Byzantine wine, no. Byzantine grape variety, yes, because still we don't know how Byzantines were making. Probably they were not doing very good wines, because there are lots of reports by the people. Well, wine culture of Ottomans, I will briefly say a few words, and then I'll talk about, and then we'll talk about the grapes. Although based on these religious rules that prohibited the production of conventional alcohol into Muslims, Ottoman attitude can be examined into two periods. Classical period from early 16th century to mid-19th, where the rules were strictly applied, and many alcohol prohibitions were applied in that time, starting with Solomon the Magnificent. His son we can see with a glass of wine in his hand, by the way, 11th Sultan of Ottoman Empire, Selim the second, who's known with his particular interest in this divine drink. From 19th century, especially from 1850s onwards, though, things changed completely in Ottomans, because to the extent that even one of the statesmen of the most conservative sultans of the Ottomans, Abdülhamid II, became the first private raki producer of Turkey, with the authorization of the sultan himself. The sultan is Abdülhamid II, and the man is Sarıcazade Ragıp Pasha. And his raki brand was called Umurca in those days, and it was done in Tekirdağ province. So this was, well, that sultan for the first time authorized the. Well, observation of travelers, Hans der Schwam mentions Muscat wine as a popular drink in the city. He also states that the locals that served alcoholic drinks were kept mainly by Jewish and Greek citizens of the city. He also writes in these records that Turks drink a lot, and they can even sell their shirts for buying drinks where necessary. Page 104, records of Hans der Schwam. Yes, well, there are several other things, but well, this is the most important. Well, first years of Atatürk was a great man. Of course, we owe very much to Atatürk for the culture of wine in Turkey. First president of Turkey and founder of modern Turkey, as you know. He called for the first time a French man who was the pioneering enologist of those days, Monsieur Émile Bouffard, from France, and Emile Buffard came. He lived in Turkey from 1927 to 1933, and he made the first researches and the first classification in Turkey. Then afterwards, he would be followed by a great viticulturalist, Marcel Biron, another Frenchman, who would come to Turkey again, who stayed from 37 to 47 during the reign of İsmet İnönü's front. Well, in the first years, first was taken under government control, financial supports. We see here's an advertisement of wine. In 1946, 28 small-sized wines. Actually, wine was, or viticulture was, very deeply hit by one thing. It was the population exchange between Turkey and Greece, which took place between the years 1923-1925. Because that population exchange was foreseeing the exchange of populations for Muslims. Well, according to that, Turkish Muslims who lived in Macedonia would come back to Turkey, right? Turkish Muslims, because they were Turkey. After Turkey was established, right? Modern Turkey was established. And Greeks who were, or Greek-speaking Anatolians, we cannot exactly say Greek-speaking Anatolians who were living in Turkey, except those who were in Istanbul, were supposed to be exchanged with them, go to Greece. But of course, those who were dealing mainly with viticulture were those Greek-speaking Anatolians, together with Armenians. So when this population disappeared, those who came, I mean the newcomers, so Turks who came, Muslim Turks who came, were just, did not have anything to do with wine. Therefore, viticulture was abandoned. So it was a very big deal by Atatürk in the first 2-3 decades of Turkish Republic to, again, well, improve the wine industry. Here, well, Cappadocia is a region where I live. Just a few slides about Cappadocian vineyards. Well, we have no time to speak. I will pass to grape varieties now. Great depictions. Cappadocia was a great wine region of Turkey, although it makes today, by today, 3-4% of Turkish wines. In the historical context, it's one of the most important wine regions of Turkey, and a great climate for producing wine, especially for white wines. It has a great climatic conditions. From here, we understand that this depiction is 10th century. It belongs to a church in Zelve Valley in Cappadocia. From here, we understand that they both had red and white grapes. This is what, because well, they draw on the apse of the church, and seeing this on the apse of the church, as you know, the apse is the most precious part of the church. It's very important in church, because in the apse we generally see the image of Jesus Christ or Virgin Mary. So the grape is there, which means that it's very holy. It's one of the holiest things, at least they have. A grape cluster, again in Cappadocia, in the church of Saint Barbara in Cappadocia. Winery. Well, what I mean by winery is this. This is a fairy chimney. Well, the structure, you don't see it as a whole, but inside the fairy chimney, they carved this. I mean, a man can get in, just to describe you the size of this, because there's a little hole as well. So this is the big hole, and this is the small one. Those who crush the grapes are supposed to crush the grapes by their feet, get in this one, and afterwards they just step on the grapes. And then there's, you don't see from here, but there's a little hole, connection between these two kind of vats. So just the grape juice flows down into this one. And you have several of these examples for making wine in Cappadocia, because Christianity without wine wouldn't be thinkable. So this is the reason why Christianity spread in the countries where there is wine. For that reason, we see Christianity much later spreading to northern part of Europe. It's just because wine and Christianity must go hand in hand. Well, some grapes of Cappadocia. Grape varieties of Turkey. Before, well, just a few words about this. We have around 650 grape varieties in Turkey. 60 of them are used for making wine. 50-50. Indigenous and international ones are half-half, 50%, 50%, more or less. Papaz karası, Semillon, Senso, Gamay, for instance, on trace, what you see, Semillon, Senso, Gamay, these are the three French grape varieties which were brought by that gentleman, Emile Buffard, French enologist in 1920s for the first time to Turkey. Also we can see Alicante, Calignan, these are international grapes, Syrah, Shiraz. Some people call, even there are questions if it comes from the city of Shiraz. No one knows. There's just one research which has been done by California University in 1999, if I'm not wrong, about the origins of Syrah, which proved that at least scientifically. It was the crossing of two grape varieties from southeastern part of France. One was Dureza, which is a black grape, a red grape or black grape. The other one was a white grape, white variety, Mondeuse Blanche. So just, well, for the time being, this is what we know about Syrah. So just, we cannot go so far beyond. By the way, Turkey is the fifth country in the world for the acreage under wine, sixth biggest grape producer of the world, sixth, right, 32nd wine producer of the world, because of the fact that only 10% of the grapes, around 10% of the grapes in Turkey are used for making wine. The rest are for eating, for exporting, for making vinegar. We are a big consumer of vinegar, for other purposes. 44th wine consumer. 44th, our rank in the world is 44th in the wine consumption, according to the figures of OIV, Organisation Internationale du Vin, 2012. These are the figures of 2012. So, now I will describe briefly the wines that you will taste, because we prepared 4 wines. Rather than beauty of wine is matter of taste. You may like one of the wine. Well, the wine I like most in Turkey is one of the cheapest wines of Turkey, by the way. It's still after 15, 20 years of experience in the wine. That's the wine which gives me the biggest pleasure. However, here the purpose is not to introduce the best wines of Turkey. The purpose is to introduce you the indigenous, relatively rare grape varieties of Turkey. And I will start with Emir. Among the indigenous varieties, among the indigenous grape varieties, this is one of the most indigenous ones. Emir comes from Cappadocia, from the area where I've spent half of my year, by the way, continental climate. 1,000 meters above the sea level, just more than 3,000 feet. It's one of the rare grape varieties in the world which can be grown in such a high altitude, because generally when you look at grape at altitude for the grapes in Italy, in France, in Spain, you never see more than 800 meters, which is like 2,000, and that's even the highest limit, right? While in Turkey, Emir is such a great variety that it cannot be grown under 1,000 meters. Just what it doesn't like, it doesn't give anything. Mineral, apple, it gives kiwi, pear, yellow lemon, continental, high elevation, poor, sandy, volcanic soil, and it's generally done in the shape of the bush vines. Here you can see a cluster of Emir, E-M-I-R, food and wine map. I've just put, just to give you an idea about that, because Emir is a hard wine. It's strong, acidic. It's like the climate, because there, tonight, the temperature is like 15 degrees, minus 15 degrees, just full of snow, so like 2 feet of snow. So for that reason, the grape is a strong one, and its taste, although it's not such a high quality grape, it has a very high level of acidity. So for that reason, we match generally with salmon, shellfish, asparagus, pastas, salads. Without vinegar, vinegar is a big problem, because the big problem about Turkish cuisine is that we have too much vinegar, lemon, and yogurt. So that's something which makes Turkish cuisine hard to match with wine. I mean, hardly we can have with this, at least with this style. Wines are light to medium bodied, light yellow color, high acidity, delicate. Sparkling and still wine. Most of the sparkling wines of Turkey, we don't have that many. The number of sparkling wines in Turkey are not more than 5 fingers of one hand. So just the brands we can count: Kavaklı Derez, Dolucaz, and that's it. Does not match with O because it has a very light structure, so should be consumed in 1 or 2 years. Generally, consume wines in early times. Well, this is not a discussion about wine. Wine lecture is something else. However, I wanted to speak about wine, but generally, on the contrary of what is told, 95% of wines in the world are produced to be consumed in 3 years, 3-4 years. only 4 or 5% of the wines in the world are done for being stored. I mean, well, it doesn't mean that you cannot store wines. You can store, of course, and still, like 10 years later, you'll drink. But those years will not bring any benefit to those wines. That's the meaning of for this 95% of the wines. Highest and delicates. Well, then we'll pass to trace. I would like just to mention, if you live in Turkey, if you have time, from May onwards, go to Discovery, because, well, I also personally worked in this project, at least for the introduction in English, for the wording in English, for the text in English of this first wine route of Turkey. They wanted to call it wine route, but afterwards the law has changed in Turkey, and they had to call it vine route. So first it was W. Then it became 1V. They wanted to refer to viticulture for this. 14 wineries established the first wine route of Turkey in the summer of 2013, Thracian wine route. So it was supposed to be Trakya şarap rotası. It's been Trakya bağ rotası. But quite important and quite beautiful wineries done this. Well, one of the grape varieties, little known. Just 2-3 producers in whole Turkey which make this very noble Byzantine grape variety, kınalı yapıncak. Synonym is Vasilaki, for those who know the wines of Bozcaada. This grape starts from Uçmakdere region. Uçmakdere is in Thrace. Just I will show you, Uçmakdere is right here, hard to go. The very curving road, the road has been recently redone for passing right this area, close to Istanbul. From Uçmakdere all along Şarköy until Bozcaada, this grape variety is done. Today we just there's Corvus, which makes under the name of in Bozcaada under the name of Vasilaki. We'll taste a vineyard called or a brand like Paşa Eli kınalı yapıncak, but same grape variety. Here is you can see the grape. The clusters are not that tight. It does not have a very big yield. When you look at the clusters, it doesn't give you the impression of a good grape. However, I'm sure you will like the wine. So it will be the second wine. First wine will be Emir. First wine to be served will be Emir. Second wine will be from Thrace, this one. Called Vasilaki in Bozcaada, which is known as Tenedos, which is a great wine island too. Its wines were probably mentioned by Homer in Iliad and Odyssey, because Homer clearly mentions some wines in Iliad. Even Homer refers to a wine, he says, he blames Greek soldiers in Iliad, around 10,000, 11,000 verse. He says they were drunk because they had to wait. They had to wait the ideal conditions to raid to Troy, and by that time they were hidden behind a island, and that island, it seems, is Bozcaada, and they drank the wine of that island and they became drunk, so they could not raid at the right time. Just their stories, so probably it was this wine. Its wines are yellow pale color, light bodied, light acidity, half aromatic, does not match with oak because of its light structure. Other grapes from Bozcaada, Çavuş, Kuntra, and Karalahana. Çavuş is table grape. It's one of most beautiful table grapes of Turkey. What we say table grape and wine grape, it doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the grape. Table grape, wine grapes are juicy. Table grapes they have rather just meat inside. For instance, one has like 70% of juice, the other one has just 40-45% of juice. That's the only difference between. Otherwise, they have the same amount of sugar. But economically, the table grape may not be very rentable for the wineries to work with. So that's what makes the difference between a table grape and a wine grape, except one, which is Sultaniye, Smyrna, grape of Smyrna. It's a seedless grape, so you can hardly make wine with that. Kuntra, Karalahana, these are two important grapes as well. Just a vineyard from Bozcaada Island. And you can see grape cluster on a wine coin from Bozcaada, which dates back to first century. Kınalı yapıncak, aroma profile, yellow lemon, orange peel, mineral apple. The other wine, so there will be 4 wines to taste. The 2 will be white and 2 will be red. Kalecik Karası, from Ankara. Kalecik means small castle. It's a little town 50 kilometers east of Ankara. It makes relatively fruity, light wines. For a long time, by Armenian people who lived in big majority in that area, they were this grape variety was planted. Then, by 1920s, 30s, after the departure of those Armenians, well, it disappeared almost. Afterwards, after the works of some people from the University of Ankara, some viticulturists from early 80s came back. Today, Kayacık Karası gives straightforward, normally medium quality wines, although it once was thought to be very prestigious grapes. In the course of time, however, we think that it gives very pleasant wines to drink cool, red berries, cherry, strawberry, raspberry, cotton candy, gay more stable, maybe the aromas we can get, gay more stable, develop in the course of the time, of course, they don't exist. We'll have a Kayacık wine from a true producer in Kayacık, because today in Turkey, this is a good thing, but this is a problem as well of our wine quality. Any grape variety almost, except Emir of Cappadocia, is grown in any region. So for that reason, only 10% of Kayacık Karası's come from really the town of Kayacık. So from that town near Ankara. So I wanted to pick one producer which has the winery there. So it will be a Kayacık Karası from its original terroir. In other words, disrespect to the terroir is a big problem of Turkey. I emphasize this. This is unfortunately, they take all the grapes to the different areas to make them, to produce them, to cultivate them, and then to make wines with them. Kayacık Karası, pides, meat with tomato sauce, grilled cutlet, Turkish ravioli with tomato sauce. There's a word that I like very much. Grows together, goes together. It's true. It's true for wine, because when you look truly wine and food, you see that there's a match, which is being naturally done. I mean, you don't need to look further, because look at the wines of the region, look at the food of the region, just without taking into consideration that match, they will match. You do the chemical thing, and you will see that they will match. Papaz Karası will be our last grape to taste today. Papaz Karası, black of bishop, black of priest. I would like to say a couple of things about this noble grape of Turkey, ancient Turkey, of Byzantine world, definitely. The area where this grape is grown, I specially pointed this. I made this slide for this presentation, by the way. Although it was grown in Ankara and in Cappadocia as well until 1960s. Somehow, from 1970s onwards, it disappeared from that area, and it came back to its home area, though, which is Kırklareli's Kırca Salih town, and Edirne's Uzunköprü. So just this town, and there's another town which is here, Edirne Uzunköprü. It's grown there. It's a very interesting grape, so it will be the fourth wine that you will taste. Let's see. Turkish best-known grape variety in international arena due to its presence in wine menus abroad in 1930s. It's true that after the alcohol prohibition ended in the United States in 1933, in 1936, we started to see this grape in this wine in some countries, and also in France until mid 1960s. This was Papaz Karası wines were exported in quite big amount to France. Turkey today exports only 2% of its wines, by the way. We are not such a big actor in the foreign trade either. Although it's grown in Central Anatolia, it's on land, we said. Once widely planted, this forgotten prince, I call it, because it's coming back, thanks to the efforts by especially one winery that I appreciate a lot, Melen, I will pronounce its name, in Hoşköy area on the Sea of Marmara. They just recreated this grape. Here is the cluster of Papaz Karası. This is an advertisement from 1950s, I think. Zeki Aral, the man who meant Papaz Karası in Turkey in 1950s and 1960s. The wine of which the code does not change. And here also what's important is that this is the kind of advertisement you cannot see anymore, unfortunately, in Turkey. It's a modern looking woman holding a wine bottle and wine glass in the hand. Perhaps, according to a law which passed June 2013. It's prohibited to promote, to advertise alcohol and tobacco in Turkey. So the things are quite strange. Black Priest in English. Wines were probably widely consumed during Byzantine times in monasteries. Besides Turkey, this grape variety is grown in Thracian part of Bulgaria and Greece. It's the latest ripening grape in Turkey, it's true. It enjoys very much the continental climate with considerable temperature difference between day and night. And one thing I would like to add, it's Turkish Pinot Noir. If there's one grape variety, for instance, Emir is the first grape variety is very much like, how to say, for those who want to compare Sauvignon Blanc, the first wine that you will taste. The second that will be served does not exist in, well, Verdicchio, Italian, for those who know. From Marche, especially, which is the eastern part of Italy. It's very close to that for those who know. Our Kalecik Karası from Ankara is close to Sangiovese. This one is our Pinot Noir. It's, of course, look, it's like, genetically, these grape varieties are indigenous, right? Ruby red color, medium body, live acidity. It is the richest grape for the fruit acids in it, by the way. Good examples match ag because it's good structure. Other than being varietal, can be blended with Karalahana, grape from Bozcaada Island, to be structured. Closest to Pinot Noir, as we said, among the varietals of Turkey. So the grapes, there are a lot, and there are lots of things to say, but I would like to stop here. I had to do it very quickly. I hope you have enjoyed. Thank you.